Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees for the Village of Blue Ridge. Today is May 14th. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we are going to be led by a Gower Middle School student by the name of Liam Newman. According to his principal, Tracy Murphy, he's a fine young man. He represents character, the character, respect, and kindness expected at Gower Middle School. His interests are he's a dancer, hip hop, jazz, and ballet. Jazz is his favorite. He also swims, takes karate. He also does very well in academic areas. He truly enjoys coming to school, and to quote Liam, "There's always a new friend to make or someone to help out." He likes traveling with his family. They have been on many cruises together. He's here tonight with his wife. I'm sorry, with his. A little bit of levity for tonight's meeting. He's very advanced for his age. Okay. Tamara Kalatha Beadle. No, this is his mother's name. All right, Liam, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Liam. Nice job. Karen, may I have roll call, please?
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Model.
Here.
Trustee Beveza. Trustee Beveza. Here. Trustee Mattel. Here. Trustee Snyder.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Mayor Straub.
Here. Okay, first section is for residents' comments. And as many of you know, you're welcome to address a topic on topic. But any residents like to address the board before we go through the consent agenda? Seeing no one, we're going to go through the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed. Under minutes, we have 5A, approval of regular board meeting of April 23rd, 2018. B, receive and file draft plan commission meeting of May 7th, 2018. C, receive and file draft stormwater committee meeting of May 8th, 2018. D, receive and file local school committee meeting of April 19th, 2018. There's nothing under ordinances, but under resolutions, we have the adoption of a resolution establishing a fund balance for the general fund and maintaining a balanced budget. Under B, we have adoption of a resolution approving the release of a storm sewer easement created by the plat of a subdivision for Devon Woods, that's 1 Shenandoah Court. C, adoption of resolution authorizing settlement agreement for Lot 4 Devon Woods subdivision, also 1 Shenandoah Court. Under consideration, we have, this would be 8D, approval of recommendation to award contract for hydrant installations in Hinsdale Industrial Park to VN Construction Incorporated, the amount of $36,200, and contract for hydrant materials to East Jordan Iron Works in the amount of $26,690. Under E, approval of recommendation to award contract for engineering services for the Blue Ridge Parkway, the resurfacing project to Patrick Engineering Incorporated of Lyle in the amount of $83,885. F, approval of recommendation to award contract for fiscal year 2018-19 street sweeping services to Lakeshore Recycling Systems of West Chicago in the amount of $26,364. Under G, approval of recommendation to award contract for 2018-19 Bull Rock salt purchase to the Detroit Salt Company in the amount of $107,440. H, approval of recommendation to award contract for purchase of patrol carbine accessories to Clyde Armory of Athens, Georgia, in the amount of $8,413. I, approval of contract with attorney Christine Charkevich for continued legal services for the prosecution of traffic and municipal ordinance violations. J, approval of mayor's nomination to appoint Raymond Lucas to the Police Pension Board for a term expiring on May 1st, 2020. K, approval of mayor's nomination to appoint trustee Tony Schiappa to the Street Policy Committee for a term expiring on May 1st, 2019. L, approval of request from the Flag Creek Heritage Society for donation from hotel motel tax funds for the Robert Weil House Museum. M, approval of requests from I&M Canal National Heritage Corridor for donation from hotel motel tax fund for the village's 2018 annual dues. N, approval of request for raffle license for Gower PTO and hosting facility license for Burridge Community Center for event on May 19th, 2018. O, approval of request from the police department to solicit funds to support the National Cops Organization, Concerns of Police Survivors, their conference being held in Oak Brook on November 9th to 11th of 2018. P, receive and file a resignation letter from probationary police officer Ramond Payne. Q, recommendation to hire a replacement patrol officer to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Officer Ramond Payne. R, approval of fiscal year 17-18 vendor list in the amount of $113,539.22 for all funds, plus $257,279.85 for payroll, for a grand total of $370,819.07, which includes a special expenditure of $19,690 to Kramer Tree Specialist for spring branch pickup. S, approval of fiscal year 18-19 vendor list in the amount of $51,815.65 for all funds, plus $254,565.96 for payroll, for a grand total of $306,381.61, which includes no special expenditures. That's not a longer alphabet. May I have a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? That would be 5A, B, C, and D. Ordinances 7A, B, and C. Considerations 8, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, and S.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Model,
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
Trustee McCall,
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
Trustee Francis,
Yes.
6-0.
All items approved 6-0. First item for discussion under considerations. Our village administrator, Doug Pollock.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I would like to turn it over to Evan Walter to present the Plan Commission recommendation. Oh. As soon as we get our technology ready here.
Okay, thank you again. I'm Evan Walter, Assistant to the Village Administrator. I'm the staff liaison to the Plan Commission for this particular hearing. Sorry? Hear me now? Yes. Okay, I apologize. As I said, I'm Evan Walter. I'm the Assistant to the Village Administrator. I was the staff liaison to the Plan Commission for this particular hearing. Again, this is Z05 2018 and S03 2018 McDonald's at 9101 Kingery Highway. There are two requests we're going to discuss at the same time in this particular case. The first is for two special uses, that's Z05. The special uses are for a single-use restaurant with drive-through facilities, so a single-tenant restaurant with drive-through facilities. The second is for a sign variation. That's to have 4 wall signs in place of 2 wall signs and a ground sign. Before we begin, I'd just like to point out additions in your packet that you'll have. Staff will begin including the staff reports that we've written for the Plan Commission in your packets from now on. Sometimes it's hard to boil down the entire conversation and all of the data that we discussed in the Plan Commission into one letter. So I wanted to make sure that you had the staff reports in front of you to help make a better decision on this particular case. And you'll be getting those from now on. This was just the case that I felt there was just so much data and information to discuss that I wanted to make sure you had more than just the letter, which is also included. Again, the petitions are for an amendment to the Plan Unit Development A83424-15 Spectrum and request special use approvals for a single tenant restaurant and drive-through facilities accessory to any permitted or special use in a B2 business district. The second request, SO3-2018, requests a variation from Section 55 of the Burr Ridge Sign Ordinance to permit 4 wall signs in addition to a permitted ground sign on the subject property. Again, we're going to discuss these at the same time just for brevity. The property is zoned B2 business within the PUD, and the purpose of the B2 district is to accommodate those uses which require substantial land area, are major travel destinations, require substantial support of parking, and draw their clientele or employees from the regional market. Again, many of these uses require a high degree of access and roadside visibility for exposure from major thoroughfares. So we're talking not quite a boutique business here, we're talking more of a drive-along business along an arterial or a major road, such as Kingery Highway. This is a major intersection within our village. We've recently annexed it in 2015, so this is new to our planning area here. I'd just like to briefly orient you as to the map as to what we're talking about here, just for the public's benefit as well. Where are we actually talking about? 9101 Kingery Highway is at the southeast corner, the hard corner, at Kingery Highway and 91st Street. You can see the bounds of the Spectrum PUD. We have got an old aerial here, but that's where the Spectrum Senior Living Facility is being built currently on the eastern part of the property. If you can see on the top left corner there, you've got a yellow rectangle with a star. That's the site which McDonald's is proposing to locate at. If you look at the bottom left corner of the screen, you'll see a dashed yellow line. That is the current location of the McDonald's that McDonald's is seeking to relocate to 9101 Kingery Highway. So the McDonald's will be relocating from this location to the more northern location on the corner in Burr Ridge. I've also pointed out here a couple of intersections nearby, as well as the Falling Water subdivision. 91st and Madison is over on the right side of the screen, as well as Falling Water subdivision, which takes the majority of the screen on the right side of the screen there. And again, north is up. The consideration before the Plan Commission was to approve the special use with drive-through facilities. There were 5, I would say, major considerations that the Plan Commission was engaged in during this discussion. The 5 were the site plan, traffic, the appropriateness / neighborhood value, the building elevations, and signs. The main issues that we're recalling with the site plan were really the circulation of traffic within the business, within the land that McDonald's will be located on, as well as within the PUD overall. We'll talk a little bit more about site circulation in a moment. Traffic, specifically, what is the quantity of traffic that'll be coming to this site now that McDonald's will be locating here, as well as what is the impact that we have on village roads, primarily 91st Street. The third one was the appropriateness / the neighborhood value of this property. There were concerns brought up by the residents about property values being, of the fast food restaurant being located near a subdivision like Falling Water. We also had discussions related to crime, as well as noise, smell, and light pollution that would be generated by the use. Building elevations was also a key discussion within the Plan Commission. Primarily, they wanted something that was unique to Burr Ridge, something that was just not cookie cutter and you could find in any other town. They wanted something that would look nice in the corner as it's an entrance to our village. And then finally, it's an additional item, but the signs, there was an additional request for additional signs, and I'll touch on that a little bit more at the end. Let's briefly talk about site plan. This is the more narrow view of the site plan. This is the corner, as you can see, on Kingery and 91st Street. This is how the proposed access would look from 91st Street. As you can see, you'd come in, you'd head south on an interior access road within the PUD. This will be built before the McDonald's can open. This is key to moving traffic in and out of the McDonald's. If that road is not built, the McDonald's can't function because there's nowhere else to get in directly from the road. You have to go through this access road. And so the site plan has been designed to have one traffic loop going through around the building. You come in, you either park or you go through the drive-through and you immediately exit to the east there. There's no double loop. The amount of time you spend on the site is limited because of the single loop. And that's a nice function of the property right there. This is a larger look. This is Kingery Highway. How would we get in going northbound from Kingery Highway? Again, I'm going to step away from the mic here. This is the southern terminus of the PUD. There's a little bit more down here that we talk about with the engineering. But the essential item down here is that we have a right-in, right-out on Kingery Highway. The right-in, right-out would provide primary access coming from the south to the north, going northbound on Kingery Highway. So there'd be a right-in, right-out exit, again, going through an access road, single loop around the restaurant, and then single access back out, turn back onto Kingery Highway, and continue heading north to your final destination. That addresses the site plan primarily. Traffic was another large concern. I would say this is the item that the Planning Commission spent the majority of their time on, was traffic. There are approximately 30,000 cars that go by this intersection daily. That's Kingery and 91st Street. About 25,000 of that originates on Kingery Highway, and about 5,000 is on 91st Street. So it's a pretty busy intersection overall there. Traffic studies were done when Spectrum was being built out, and it was imagined that they would have about a 15,000 square foot pharmacy or use on the corner, and then 2 drive-through restaurants further south on the lot. So this is a smaller use than what the traffic was projected to be when they built out Spectrum. The McDonald's is projecting that they'll have about 1,700 cars visit the site on a daily basis. About half of those traffic cars will be unique trips that are not from the existing traffic. So about 800 cars a day will come here to this site, will visit the site without actually being from that existing road trip. So if someone from the neighborhood to the north says, I was not going this way, but I wanted to get a meal down here, I'm going to make a unique trip down there. They'd be one of those 860 cars approximately. We also discussed peak traffic between morning, midday, and evening. As you can see, the peak morning hour was estimated to be 7:15 to 8:15 a.m., 75 cars in, 72 cars out. Midday was noon to 1, 103 cars into the site, 100 out. And then evening was estimated to be 445 p.m. to 5:45 p.m., 62 cars in, 58 cars out. So midday is the busiest, then morning, and then evening in terms of a peak hour. Parking, there were 47 spaces currently listed on the site plan. If you look on the site plan, you'll see on the bottom here, there's a cross-access easement. This will go away when the southern portion of the property is developed. At that point, the parking lot will then have 44 spaces. So again, right here, these spaces will go away when the southern portion of the property is developed. This is just to provide ease of use for McDonald's and their development partner to the south when they eventually try to connect these lots. That being said, the study estimated that either at 47 or 44, the peak demand would be 36 spaces, so parking capacity was not a concern. They technically do need 50 spaces by ordinance standards, but staff nor the Planning Commission had any concern that 44 or 47 would be sufficient for the needs of the petitioner. But again, the primary concern throughout the Planning Commission hearing was the impact on 91st Street, what that would do to the signal there going westbound on 91st towards Kingery. There's a speedway there in unincorporated DuPage County, so there's nothing we can really do to regulate what they do or how they affect their traffic. But there was a lot of concern there about people coming in from Kingery Highway and trying to make a left into Speedway, as well as coming out of Speedway trying to make that move toward the southbound on Kingery Highway. So again, it's a right from Kingery Highway onto 91st going into Speedway, and then coming out of Speedway trying to go south on Kingery. Those are the main movements that were under consideration by the Planning Commission as being potentially difficult. This is a mock-up the petitioner provided of the 91st Street improvements that are being made as we speak. As part of this, 91st is being widened and restriped to add additional capacity in the left turn lane. So if you see on the top of the picture here, we've got the existing roadway stripes. We've got 120 feet of left turn storage with 235 feet of left turn taper. This becomes 195 feet of left turn storage and 133 feet of two-way left turn storage once all the improvements are made. And what this does to the street, it allows for full 6 vehicle stacking to go to 12 vehicle stacking with a gateway, if you will, with a cut through going to O'Neill. This is O'Neill Drive. This is unincorporated DuPage County, but there were residents who lived on O'Neill Drive that were present at the meeting to discuss how this action would affect them getting in and out of the property, specifically on O'Neill Drive. So again, we're approximately...
Evan, can you just go through that stacking the difference between one versus the other and where those cars will be pulling from?
Just before and after, basically?
Right.
Okay.
And do you have a pointer? Or-
I don't think it was working. Is it plugged in?
That works. That might be easier for us all to follow the bouncing ball, you know?
No problem, thank you. So again, currently we're seeing 6 vehicles can stack without entering the taper. The taper is really kind of a buffer zone within a turning lane that says you can try to fit there, but you're not fully going to fit within the lane. So we see this sometimes on Plainfield Road going north, County Line Road going north toward Plainfield. People back up from the light and they have to sit on County Line Road before getting into that left turn lane on Plainfield Road. That's not enough taper, basically, to provide enough capacity for the existing roadway storage. So currently, we have enough space for 6 vehicles to stack on 91st Street without entering the taper. Now, some vehicles could park here and wait for the light, but they'd be partially blocking this right and straight lane on 91st Street. That's not good because we've all gotten stuck behind that person who's got half their car in the lane, and now nobody can get through on that right side. But once what happens when we expand the road and we add new striping, we now have space for at least 12 cars in the new 91st Street. There's enough capacity for 8 cars west of the in-out egress on 91st Street. This is the site on the PUD that goes to the McDonald's. This is the 4 vehicles that we can additionally stack behind this cross traffic right here. So if you have somebody coming in north on Kingery, they want to go east and they want to turn into O'Neill, there will be an opportunity for them to have access here because they'll be providing with additional traffic capacity. Appropriateness and neighborhood value. This is one that was a bit harder to objectively measure, but we still discussed it as a serious item that needed to be considered. There were several residents who objected to the McDonald's proposed proximity to nearby neighborhoods, primarily the Fallingwater subdivision and the residents north of 91st Street in the unincorporated area near Speedway, O'Neill, Palisades, and Skyline primarily. Their primary concerns were loss of property value, crime in the area, as well as noise, smell, and light pollution that would emanate from the McDonald's. Every use has impacts. The Plan Commission decided to address this by requesting the crime data from nearby McDonald's and other uses along Kingery Highway. So they requested the data from the Walgreens, the Speedway, the Power Center, the Strip Center, I should say, on the southwest corner where the 7-Eleven used to be, and the existing McDonald's. And it showed that there was some criminal activity occurring at the nearby uses, but in some cases it was hard to understand whether things were actually occurring at these locations because of the way DuPage County codes their criminal system. So they always use the closest address when they code a case. There also was an instance where a lot of the cases were not even criminal activities, they were just service calls. So if someone were to get a flat tire in the McDonald's parking lot, it would be coded to McDonald's. So while the list of calls was about this long, the actual list of cases that were of issue were about this long, just to use a very subjective measure there. And so, again, while there were issues that did occur at the McDonald's, there were some problems that did occur over the years, but there were some things that were coded in the McDonald's that we had confirmed that were existing at other portions of the strip center that it's currently located at, but were simply coded to that address. Hard to quantify loss of property value due to a use coming into your neighborhood. Because there's no fast food restaurant in Burr Ridge right now like this, it's hard to really make the comparison or provide any long-term objective, solid projection as to what that will happen. But that was a concern, and I felt that the Plan Commission did take that very seriously during their discussions. Building elevations were also another concern. There was a large discussion regarding, well, do we want to have something in Burr Ridge that anybody can get? And so the elevations were revised from the first public hearing to provide this type of design. Now this brick is basically going to match the brick that you see on Spectrum. You see that dark brown with the shale, the light shale on the sides. So when you see Spectrum, think of that's what you can basically imagine McDonald's will look like when it's fully built, if it's fully built. It's a little odd. The rear elevation actually faces north. This is what the rear elevation would look like. They put a few windows in here, and they put a couple of other decorative items such as this overhang to help dress it up a bit. There's also information in the landscape plan that shows that they added additional trees and flowers by the drive-through window on that side. This is the non-drive-through side elevation. This is east. This would be facing Spectrum. This would be facing south. Again, front elevation is facing south, kind of away from Burr Ridge, if you will. And then the drive-through side is the western side. This is what's going to face Kingery Highway. So these are the elevations that were submitted by the petitioner. There were some elements that were removed. I know there was an elevation here, an architectural feature, one of these yellow, we'll call them an arch, for lack of a better word. There was one here that was removed. There were a few other items that were removed. We were able to get the petitioner to remove all the words from the building. There's no McDonald's anywhere on the facility, only these M signs. So there was a compromise there between petitioner and what the Plan Commission wanted. Finally, SO3 2018, this is the sign variation. The business is permitted to have one ground sign and two wall signs, all of which cannot exceed 100 square feet. And so McDonald's is asking for one ground sign, this sign here, and 4 wall signs. Each wall sign would be approximately 14 square feet in area. Put all together, it's 96 square feet. So they're asking for 4 wall signs in addition to a permitted ground sign, but they are staying under that 100 square foot cap. They are respecting that. It's always hard to measure whether these count. Staff did not count this as part of the sign. We counted this as part of the monument, counted this as just part of the sign. There's no clear definition of that, but this is counted as the ground sign, and this is the wall sign. And again, there's 4 of them on the building total, 1 on each elevation. The side-facing Spectrum, right here, this M, will be turned off at night. And as part of the recommendation, the Plan Commission asked that this sign be lowered and shrunk in size. At a certain point, if we get down small enough, it won't even be counted as a size. It's more of a directional sign. That would be 4 square feet and 4 feet off the ground. So if that sign were to be moved to that size, it would only be 3 signs at the end of the day. But again, there's one, we'll call it just an M feature, sign feature on each side of the building without interruption right now. So again, about 6 hours of discussion boiled down to about 10 minutes. Hopefully I didn't gloss over too many things. Again, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Commissioner Hawk is present from the Plan Commission to convey further perspective on the case. But again, if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to discuss them further.
Trustees?
Well, I'm sure some more things will come to mind as we get started, but I had the pleasure of attending most of the Plan Commission the other night and saw a lot of you there. And I just want to thank all the residents for coming out and voicing your opinions and getting involved. I mean, this is what good governance is, and if people don't get involved, we don't have good governance. And the Plan Commission, I mean, you all have a tough job to do. It's a volunteer job. You spent a lot of time there. You were there till I think 11:30 at night. So thank you all for your efforts here on this, and also the petitioner. We have, everybody has concerns about this. Residents have concerns. The petitioner has a right to petition and ask for these things. So I appreciate that they all took the time to participate as well. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your time and your involvement here in Burr Ridge.
Any questions about the project?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Al, anyone?
I'll wait till,
Bobby?
I prefer to give opinion after we hear what the people have to say.
Okay. Anybody else?
Not yet.
I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what the cost of this project is?
The investment to install the McDonald's?
Yes.
I'd like to have the petitioner answer that. They have a better idea of it.
Actually, I'll be okay. May I have someone come to the board? Come to join Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Olguin here on behalf of McDonald's USA. The total amount of the project is going to be about a $3 million investment at this location.
$3 million, okay. Thank you. Evan, just to clarify, you said it's less traffic than the projected use was, thinking that it was going to be two restaurants and a.
Yes, when Spectrum was considered several years ago, I believe 2015, a traffic study needed to be done to determine if any improvements needed to be made to the intersection at 91st and Kingery Highway. In order to do that, we had to have some baseline projections of uses that would be there in order to generate some sort of reasonable projection as to what the level of service would be required to have at that intersection. What was occurred, the traffic study that was done was assuming a 15,000 square foot pharmacy drive-through and 2 drive-through restaurants on the southern portion of the property. So the drive-through pharmacy would be on the northern portion, this site, and then 2 drive-through, we'll call them fast food restaurants for lack of a better term, would be going in on the southern portion of the site. This is a significantly smaller footprint. There'd be significantly less truck traffic coming through, but there was projected to be less traffic through this use on the northern portion of the site than was currently budgeted for, if you will, or projected for with the previous study.
And that's not just that lot, or is it the entire lot? You're saying what was allotted for that most northern?
If we keep the lots at the south the same, let's say we have a request for 3 drive-through restaurants, just to keep it all even, it would be less traffic than what is projected for in the 15 study than in the 18 study.
Okay, thank you. And was there ever a discussion of a northbound turning lane from adding a third lane or a right turn northbound turning lane adjacent to the speedway?
The traffic study showed that this was the amount of improvements that were going to be required to make the intersection work at a necessary level of service. So when the state or any traffic engineer looks at an intersection, they assign it a level of service. And at a certain point, you assign it a letter if you see that there are a certain amount of movements going through an intersection versus the capacity of the intersection, say a 3-lane road like this one, or a 2-lane in one direction. If there's too many movements going through, if you're waiting through too many cycles, at that point the level of service fails. But because in this case there was no determination that the level of service would ever be failing, they felt that extending, let me just go back to it just for, extending the 91st turn lane would be sufficient capacity.
So that way moves traffic to the
That way it
south
moves traffic.
lane.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, and is there ever any talk about installing a traffic light there, or a flashing light, or anything coming out at O'Neill and?
Right here?
Right.
No, that was never considered, and it was never projected to be necessary, no.
And you said how many cars per day are they estimating?
In total,
Yes.
about 1,700.
And the only number I remember, Lifetime Fitness has 70,000 swipes a month. So
70,000
approximately
trips.
2,000 a day just for Lifetime.
Yeah.
Longer turn lane, you don't have any before pics before this whole project started, do you? No.
The aerial.
Huh?
You showed the aerial. This shows what was there.
Rather nice bucolic horse farm.
Oh, yeah, yes, the horse farm and the shacks on the corner.
Yes.
That was been a while since I've seen that. Okay, and is the building gonna be as nice as the one in Hinsdale?
I believe there are multiple in Hinsdale.
What's that?
I believe there are multiple in Hinsdale.
Oh, okay, maybe. So it looks close, I think, but I haven't compared it recently, so. That's all the questions I have of you.
You know how many jobs are going to be created with this McDonald's in Burbridge?
Good evening, Brian Temple, McDonald's. So we're looking to hire about 80 total crew and managers for the site.
Any other questions of Evan?
Is there a revenue estimate? I mean, they're going to be in the village, they'll be paying taxes to the village, is that correct?
Yes, they'll definitely be a sales tax generating business. You can assume a 1% place of eating tax, and then the sales tax is about 1% as well. So if total projections are about $3 million, we can assume about 60 a year based on all that, roughly.
Anything else? Okay. This time I'd like to, Okay, the following people asked to address the board this time. It was Greg Costner. Greg?
Mr. Mayor, trustees, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I live 9020 O'Neill, down the street from this proposed restaurant, and since the Speedway went in, you know, we get a fair amount of traffic to cut around the light off of 83 to get to Speedway. And I've looked at this as, you know, what are the pluses and minuses for the community, because I consider myself part of the community, even though I'm not in Burr Ridge. I'm in unincorporated. Pluses are McDonald's is a phenomenal business. It's, you know, baseball apple pie, and they definitely will be busy, and they definitely will generate revenue. And that's about all I can see about it. The negatives are going to be that traffic snarl. I don't know if we can go back to the one, but you know, the backing up of cars certainly will help along here, but cars will be in and out of this along with the Speedway, along with O'Neill, and it will be a bit of a hardship for people that want to access Route 83 on 91st Street. And 91st Street is, you know, one of the areas that is a bridge to Burr Ridge. This is where you've annexed now, this is it, and, you know, the golden arches are going to be your signage to entering your village. And it's nothing against McDonald's, they're phenomenal, but that's one thing. For the positives, we have a McDonald's, we have a Portillo's, we have a Burger King, we have, they're not in the community of Burr Ridge, but they're in the area. We can access them. A drive-through restaurant bringing in a lot of traffic to that corner and not really providing anything we don't already have, I don't see as being the best thing for the community. You know, I would rather see a destination restaurant or some type of a destination. It's gonna add traffic. The retirement home will add traffic. We don't know how much that will add. You have a very difficult job, and I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what the Plan Commission does. I appreciate the petitioners, and I understand it completely. And everyone needs revenue. You're the stewards of the community, and you know, this is going to be something that goes for years and years. And I just think there may be something better there for what Burr Ridge is and the type of community, upscale community and beautiful community that it is. And thank you for your time.
Alice and or. Okay. Lori Chang.
Hello, I'm Lori Chang. I live at 9550 Pacific Court. I live in the Falling Water subdivision. When we had the first meeting regarding the McDonald's, the day after my husband went out and, of course, he found semis. That's where the semis park when they want to go to Speedway. That is what they're going to do when they want to go to McDonald's. They're going to park along Route 83, and it's horrible to see around them, and people are speeding by, you cannot see. Also what he saw on O'Neill, the street behind there, there's a gentleman who has a house there, and he picks up, there was a semi parked by his house also on O'Neill for additional parking. And he said daily he picks up trash behind Speedway because people just throw it because it's not their property, it's just empty space, what do they care? I've been to the Lurig when they tried to put the plan in, I went to all the meetings. I go to the high school district meetings because I love Burr Ridge, and where I call South Burridge, the stepchild of Burridge. I mean, everybody wants to throw what they don't want towards us. And at the Lurid meeting, I did ask Mr. Lurid, do you live by Lurid asphalt plant? And he goes, oh, of course not. So, we moved to this beautiful area, and it seems that, and as Evan said, it's going to, the side that's going to face north, I believe you said, is going to be not have as many yellow arches and things like that. But the side the area that's going to go south is going to have all the yellow arches. Well, of course, that faces Falling Water and all the houses there. We made a huge investment to live there. It's a beautiful area, and we keep getting all these different things that are not helping the property value. The traffic is atrocious now. People are crazy trying to get in Speedway, out of Speedway into the turning lane, off from 83, past, the cars that are back, bumper to bumper. It's impossible. And I understand it's going to bring taxes to the village, maybe, but what's that going to do? Who's going to reimburse us for what we're losing at our house? People do not want to be around that. I question the, I don't know, I have heard there's a lot of drug trafficking at the McDonald's. There is now. I don't know that for sure. And I know that police departments and the state police, if I'm correct, they do code things different ways. I do have a sister who's in the state police, and that's her job. So I was going to ask her to look into this, just get her opinion on that, because I think that would be, she knows what she's doing. She's been there a long time, and that is her job for the state. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that are happening there. I know at Walgreens there's a lot of things happening. We had a problem when the street light, the stoplight went out at 91st Street and Route 83, and there were two construction workers standing there with like a spool of wire, and I said, hey, the traffic light's out, because there were cars backed up all the way to Clarendon Hills Road. And they said, yeah, well, it was working before. We don't know what happened. I said, well, I got out of my car because everybody's, they didn't know what to do. The gentleman, one of the workers, pulls his hand out and he has his knife in his hand, opened up, in my face like this. And I'm like, okay. I got in my car, I called up the Burridge police. They told me to call the sheriff's police. I don't want to go through this stuff. I mean, it keeps happening, and there's more being added to our part of the area. And I just don't see how this is going to benefit us. I really don't. And as I said, I go to all these meetings because I am so involved in it, and fair is fair. And I don't know. I don't see how this is going to do us any good. I really don't. Oh, and I did happen to see this. Burridge was going to get into the Protect My Town. And I know that has to do with taxes and how you spend money, but how is that protecting our town? I don't think it is. That's it. And if you want the pictures, you're... Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Jim Hutchison.
I live at 10 South 667 Glen Drive, which is about a block further east from the Falling Water community. And I've been there 31 years, so I've seen how this intersection at 91st and 83 is developed. I'm thinking of some of the things that were gone over last week, the meeting that we were at to talk about this, and all these things that were brought up about the smell, first of all, at the existing McDonald's. There was a comment made about the house that's across the street from there. Someone built a real nice, huge home right on 83, up on a hill, and it's almost directly across the street from that McDonald's. The thing about that, when it was explained, well, he hasn't complained about the smell that probably goes right across the street to his house. That McDonald's has been there over 40 years, I think, and that house that's there has been there far less than 40 years. In other words, he had a choice in the matter whether he wanted to build that house there or not. The McDonald's didn't interrupt what he had tried to do before that. This is different. The McDonald's is going in here at 91st well after all these other people already live in Burr Ridge and are going to have to put up with the smell from the burned grease or whatever that's going to penetrate over into the blocks east of there whenever there's a nice warm summer wind from the west. So that's going to be a problem. Also, just north of 91st, where the community there is with the skinny streets and no curbs, where it was described by a woman last week who lives in there, and I know some people who live in there. Kids are skateboarding, they're riding their bikes, people are walking their dogs. This is a concern for people that live in there. There are a lot of people that come off of the Stevenson and come south down 83, and they turn left into that community before they get to the turn left light at 91st Street, so as to avoid that bad intersection, which is already bad and has been bad for some time. As this progresses and you get 190 units of senior living, along with all the traffic that's going to happen from the McDonald's, you're going to have just a whole lot more traffic, which will create a situation where people will try to avoid it. You'll have more people turning left before they get to that light into that community to shortcut it through and then make their way onto 91st, however they want to go through those blocks. So if I lived in there, I'd be really concerned about that traffic that's going to increase. And so what do? Do we put police cars in there to monitor that and increase our taxes and what we pay for the police to be having to deal with something like that too? It just seems really unnecessary. I've also not just lived on Glen Drive for the last 31 years and saw the progression of the way this intersection has gotten worse and worse over time. But the last 8 years, I've been a security guard over at Falling Water. The guardhouse faces directly onto 91st Street. So I worked there 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, every day for the last 8 years. I've seen the traffic all day long go back and forth. The numbers that I'm looking at that I've been told about this study, maybe they're accurate. They seem awful bogus to me, though. I've had to deal with the 110 residents that live in Falling Water that have to come through that intersection. Some of them come from the other direction too, but they all at some point in time use that intersection. And a lot of them, after they come home from a hard day's work and they drive into the front gate, so many times they're complaining about that intersection and how bad it already is and how concerned they are and worried that what's going to happen here in the future with not just the senior living, but also what's going on with the McDonald's will create just a really, really bad intersection. I've seen it firsthand, not just made a couple days study on it, I've seen it for years. And I really think not only is a McDonald's a bad contrast to the beautiful town of Burr Ridge, but it's just a bad idea. We're going to have a whole lot of problems, but mostly the traffic's just going to be ridiculous. Thank you.
And Patty Hutchison?
Hello, thank you. And Jim, my husband, actually said a lot. But as regards to traffic, I'm a dog sitter. So I watch dogs early in the morning, lunchtime, dinner time, bedtime. I go through that intersection both directions, this way and that way and that way. And I'm telling you, this turn lane, like, because I'm coming from Glen Drive, so I'm heading west on 91st Street. Many times, these cars are backed up to like here, just to turn left, or there are also people who want to get into this gas station. And I sit through 2 or 3 lights before I can get through, just because people get off the Stevenson, and I used to work downtown, and I used to do the same thing. They get off County Line Road, and they take 91st Street so they can avoid the terrible traffic on the Stevenson, and then they go left down Route 83, or wherever they want to go. I'm not sure where else they're trying to go, but I see it both ways, and lots of times I see it coming from north, south on Route 83, and there's cars waiting and waiting to turn left here because you've got cars wanting to go in here, and you've got landscapers with trucks, and then their trailers, and they're waiting to get into that gas station, actually from both directions, because I see them in the morning at 7, 6:30 when they're filling up gas, getting their snacks for their crew, whatever. And I was even there Sunday morning, dog sitting. Sunday morning, Mother's Day morning. This whole place was jam-packed with landscapers and the people waiting. And I always try to wait back here and let them come in. But I just cannot see. You've got people wanting to go left in Speedway, then you want people to go right into the McDonald's, and then you want to have people going right into that, the senior living. And I don't know where the senior living is going to start, if it's the same driveway and people are either going to go to senior living or the McDonald's. But the traffic, I don't see. And I do dog sit actually on Skyline. And that was the place I was going to. But I have people I dog sit in that neighborhood, and they are very narrow. And you see kids and dogs, and there's no shoulder, there's no curb. I mean, sometimes I can barely pass just a regular vehicle going up to the houses there. So I'm just worried. I don't think that's safe. And, people don't get enough tickets for cutting through. I mean, I don't know. You guys, police, maybe don't want to just sit around giving people a zillion tickets, but I don't know how to, I almost feel like you would need some kind of light there. Because also, this is what I thought of too, you got people back here. Now, do these people want to turn left here, or do they want to turn left here? Well, they have to people going around these people and trying to go left here. I don't know, just the logistics of it are just very bothersome to me. And oddly enough, I also visit elderly people in nursing homes. And I know there's got a lot of traffic in a nursing home. So I don't know if that's 190 residents or however many people it is, but that's going to be a lot of traffic also. I like McDonald's, the thought of it. And, it's a nice opportunity, like you said last week, for people. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem like the right gateway to this nice town of Burridge.
You mentioned about cut-through. Are you talking about the cut-through up O'Neill?
Yes. Like, they don't show it here, and in your maps, you kind of disregard that whole neighborhood. But yeah, and people go flying through there. And also, as like Lori was saying, you see semis there, 2 or 3 stacked on Route 83, and then they must get out and walk into the gas station because it's too crowded. But I have seen that too, the semis there in the morning. And even so early morning, it's crazy. Lunchtime I go by, it's crazy. Dinner time I go by, people are wanting to get home from work, it's crazy. Even at 10 o'clock at night, I see a lot of people, young people, hanging out at the Speedway. And, you know, people talked about maybe crime. I mean, you might have more kids hanging out there at nighttime. I don't know, but I do see, I've seen people actually skip out and not pay for their gas. And the gas station attendants running out, you know, trying to stop a perpetrator driving away from so there's all those elements. I was only at last week's meeting. I don't really know how much was addressed before then, but.
Actually, well, thank you. I think it's already, you're a minute over, but I thank you for answering that
Oh,
that
I didn't know I was timed. I'm very sorry.
Just again, a point of reference, Speedway and everything north is not incorporated Burr Ridge. It's not our jurisdiction. It's really a concern because it's part of, you know, it's in the community, but not in Burr Ridge. And I have to ask the police chief whether or not it's illegal to drive through that area. But I might recommend that street, that neighborhood, regardless, put up signs, local traffic only, or something that would deter people from driving through there. Because though you don't live on O'Neill, again, that's not our jurisdiction, but it might be a good idea to somehow lessen it. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was timed.
No problem.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I asked for Alice before. I didn't ask for Mark Toma. Mark, do you want to speak? Okay. John Bittner? No. And John Curran?
I came to the board with a different issue, but it's not on the agenda. But I would just like to know, if I may, is the village going to pay for the improvements in the street, widening it? Is that a village concern?
It is a village concern, but the village is not paying for it. Spectrum, the developer of the Spectrum property is paying for that.
That's the only question I have.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you want to talk about something else? But you have to wait till the end then. Fine. And by the way, who owns the property currently?
Spectrum.
And they're obviously in favor of it, I take it?
I assume, yes.
You assume so?
They wouldn't sell it if they weren't.
So it wasn't sold off to somebody else who was disregarding their concern for smell or?
I believe that's correct. I'm looking at the attorney for confirmation, but Spectrum still owns it. It's under contract to be purchased, but Spectrum is still the owner.
Okay, just wanted to cover all the bases, okay. Okay, unless there's someone who hasn't spoken yet that wants to address the board, we're going to move the topic back to the board, at which time it will not be open for discussion. This is a village board meeting. It's not a public meeting. It's not a village hall type of town hall meeting. Just so for clarification, so if anybody else would like to speak that's on the list, you're welcome to now. If not, the topic comes back to the board. Okay. Trustees, what questions would you like to, anybody else you'd like to call up from the attorneys, or any comments you'd like to make?
Sorry. I'd like to ask a couple questions of the petitioner.
Pardon me?
I'd like to ask a couple of questions of the petitioner. Why does McDonald's want to move?
Sure. There's a number of reasons why McDonald's wants to move. Number one, as most of you who are in the area know, that's an older McDonald's building.
How old?
I forget how. 20 years old.
Only 20 years?
So in terms of, why not just rehab it, from an access standpoint at that location, there's no way for somebody going northbound on Route 83 to get to that McDonald's. Also, by being on the the east side of Route 83, it allows McDonald's to get some of the morning rush hour traffic, which is beneficial. So in terms of, and overall, it's just a better location in terms of site size, what's the other uses around it. It's just a better location in general. So it's a better layout, something that we can, that fits better. Provides us morning, traffic for the breakfast traffic, and if we're going to be investing funds, it's something that we would want to invest in, something that has much better access.
How many daily tickets are there currently?
Yeah, in terms of providing like sales figures, we're always, somewhat, I don't have the authority to provide, the daily, sales numbers. But if there's any.
What's the current car count?
The current car count,
At the existing location?
Yeah, once again, in terms of what those numbers are, they're what is being referenced with an additional growth factor in the traffic report, and that's based on information that we have, and also from the traffic generation information that the traffic consultants obtain from and which was reviewed by the village traffic engineer as well.
What are the proposed hours of operation?
That was something that we had requested, that the proposed hours of operation be from 5 a.m. To midnight. The Plan Commission's recommendation was that it go from 5 to 11. And that is, I believe, what the recommendation ended up being from the Plan Commission.
Will you be installing a camera system for security purposes?
That is up to the operator. In this instance, the operator indicates it, or the representative indicates that yes, they will be.
And is it the same operator that's currently at the McDonald's? I mean, the operator?
That actually, the answer is yes, but that's only been a recent thing. That the McDonald's corporate was running the current McDonald's franchisee is being brought on board, who used to run it many years ago, and is somebody who is one of the premier operators for McDonald's, and is somebody who's done a very good job at other locations.
Okay. That's all that I have for now.
Trustee Mattel, anything?
Did you ever consider having access from Kingery Highway or to this McDonald's? There is no access from Kingery Highway. I mean, you have to get onto 91st to go in there.
Correct. You don't.
At the
you can enter from the south.
You can?
If you can, and that was actually, that's one of the, the benefits, is that people can, get off of Route 83 earlier and then get to the McDonald's without going to that 91st Street intersection. And then back out onto Route 83 once again, avoiding the 91st Street intersection and going back north.
So that should kind of prevent the crunch at 91st Street.
And just one other item, one of the things, because we did work through a lot of the traffic issues and a lot of the traffic concerns with staff, and then again with the Plan Commission, we also plan on putting a sign here at the exit, just providing folks who are going to be exiting information that they can go back on northbound Route 83. So it's so they don't necessarily need to be familiar with with the site. They can just there'll be a sign directing them that that's a way that they can go as well.
So the delivery trucks and all will come from this side, not from 91st Street.
The delivery trucks, well, the delivery trucks will be able to access that site from either direction. We made sure that that the site is sufficiently sized so that trucks in the fire, more particularly the fire truck, can circulate that location. So they have the ability to come from any direction. Exactly which direction, I don't know if that's been determined yet, but the way the site's been designed is access can be obtained from either one.
And they usually come at off hours?
Correct, correct.
Right.
Trustee Pavesa?
Over the years, whenever anything like this comes up, the one thing that I would say that we have to be cognizant of the fact is we know what we're getting, and that stuff, that property is available, and we don't know what we could get. So I always ask people to think about that. You know, the way I look at it, unless I'm wrong, McDonald's is a worldwide corporation. They have an image to protect, and I don't think they're gonna do anything that won't be counterproductive to their image and their business. That's one thing I look at. The fact that that spot is open on Route 83, there's a lot of different businesses that can go there, and we have no way of stopping them. There are certain ways that we can, but there are certain things that we can't stop them with. Also, of all the different projects, I too have been in Burr Ridge over 30 years, and of all the different projects that the village has been involved with, the same things keep coming up: traffic and property values. And I don't know how to do property values, but I will say this: out of all the items that have come before the board over the last, 20, 24 years, traffic has always been one of the problems. And once we've gone over it, and we've had the traffic items checked out in the studies, and I don't know anywhere that the traffic is really that obnoxious that it shuts down the village. There's ways, if it gets a little sticky, there's ways to get around it. We might be able to adjust the light on Route 83 to give more time one way or another. We're not sure. I know the senior citizen project was brought up. Again, we're not sure on that. But in the past, whenever there has been a problem that we didn't see, we try to work to correct it. And I know several people of Falling Waters are worried about property values and how it impacts them, and I don't blame it. It's a possibility. Evan, do you have any idea from how many distance Falling Waters entrance is?
Yes, so the question is, from 91st Street, the stop bar on 91st Street, how far it is to the subdivision entrance. It's a little more than a quarter mile from that stoplight to 91st. You can see it right at the end of the red line I've got there where the entrance is. It's a little over a quarter mile.
I think.
Oh, Evan, one more. He had another question for you that I'd like you to answer. That is there been any discussion about lengthening the turning lane length of the light on 91st Street, replacing that light fixture or light unit, or increasing the amount of time people can make a left?
Just the basic question is there anything going to be done about the stoplight at Kingery Highway? That stoplight is controlled by DuPage County. We are able as a village to petition that they re-perform cycle counts, to readjust the timing to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made based on the current development that is there. When I talked about level of service earlier, I was talking about the amount of cars that can fit in an intersection. Now this traffic use, this use does not project to have a lot more additional cars go through per cycle. They're projecting one additional car per light cycle, so it's a minor impact overall. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily measure the light timing. So we as a village can petition the county to look at that stoplight to say, can we at least optimize it if we're not going to add a significant amount of capacity, determine that additional cars, or at least the exact same amount of cars can get through, as we did before Spectrum and McDonald's and whatever on the southern site can be developed. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, Sal?
It's IDOT, I apologize, not DuPage County, but even
No,
so.
I just, and I think a quarter mile is a good distance away. One other thing I'd like to bring up, and I'm a little familiar with it. I've worked with the chief of police on a couple of these items. The other McDonald's down the road, I believe, is unincorporated territory. So whenever there's a problem, there's very seldom any police department around here, where on 91st Street, it'll be regularly checked by our police department. And I think that's also was a problem down there a little bit more, is that whole area is unincorporated, and that's at the tail end of DuPage County. So I know the chief has even complained that they call us too many times to go over there. We, as a matter of fact here, I think it'll be a lot safer, and you're not gonna have the problems that they have at the other McDonald's.
You mentioned about the police chief, you said that they have had a lot of calls there?
No, I said, whenever they have a lot of problems there, they call us.
Okay, actually, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to ask the police chief to answer. Chief, can I ask you a question? With regards to the number of, how does it all work? Here I know you're a backup for DuPage County. How much interaction do you know of that we've had down there? What do you know about the other McDonald's?
Well, the county, the unincorporated areas, the sheriff has to patrol. They're stretched kind of thin. So we regularly back up the deputies that get emergency calls down in that section of unincorporated DuPage. So we've been tracking that separately for about the past 10 years. I think since Gary Grasso was mayor, because I know Gary Grasso and my predecessor actually had met with Sheriff Zaruba to try to get more deputies signing down to that southeast corner of the county.
How many deputies do they have? Like one for every 10 square miles, or?
I don't have that information.
And have we had many calls directly for that McDonald's, to back up anybody at McDonald's?
I think Evan's got the stat on that.
Okay.
Yes, so we did a FOIA of the DuPage County Sheriff as part of the Plan Commission request, and we did the same time frame for the Burridge Police Department. We did January 1st, 2012 to I believe the last week of March 27th, 2018. And I believe we had like 12 calls for service to assist the McDonald's location between that time frame. So I don't know how to quantify a lot of calls, but there were about
12 calls
between 10 and 15
years?
total calls for service listed at the McDonald's address. Now, again, we don't know that all of those necessarily were of criminal nature at McDonald's. There could have been a lot of things happening on that day. They may have been overtasked and just needed another car to contain a site. But I would say it's between 10 and 15. Again, I don't want to objectively define what a lot of calls is. Police calls are always serious, but at the same time, I don't remember it being an overwhelming amount of calls that we were essentially a substation for the county.
It's about 10 to 15 calls over a 6-year time period.
Yeah, 5.5 years, yeah. So again, not a high quantity.
Thank you. Trustee Model?
Yeah, I just have a few quick things. So is there nothing that, we have no authority over the semis parking on Route 83? Is there anything we can, some of these concerns about these semis parking, there's nothing we can do about it?
On 83, it's a state road, so it's tough for us to do anything there. We can certainly ask for assistance with that. There may be things that they could do if they do a focused attention on that intersection one day to see if we can do anything about it. But again, with wide shoulders, sometimes the temptation is there to have the trucks parked there. So we certainly can police very heavily on our side of the road, but not a lot we can do on that road.
And the same story is in the unincorporated area as well, behind the speedway where the semis were parking in these photos. No authority there as well, correct? Okay, yeah, it's we don't control what we don't control. The unincorporated area, we can't do much of it. But it kind of strikes me what I've been thinking about, what I heard also at the Planning Commission meeting the other night. It was important. The traffic study was important to me. I hear the concerns of the residents, and you know, I saw that, like Trustee Paveza said, this is the use we know. We know McDonald's, we know what to expect, you know, but what was, and I think you pointed it out, Evan, some of these other uses, you're not projecting much more cars than was planned for this facility, correct? There was going to be perhaps a drive-through pharmacy, what was used in the study hypothetically, so you're not that much different than what this area was planned for, is that correct?
That's correct, and actually, when you look at, now obviously these aren't uses that were approved, but from a traffic generation standpoint, that was what was used when the Spectrum development was approved. And when we look at a comparison with the drive-through pharmacy, the time period where you have like the most impact on traffic is really that afternoon traffic, and that's where you have a lot more issues with a drive-through pharmacy. So we actually look at and have less impact on the intersection than something like that, which was contemplated. And once again, like as Evan mentioned, we weren't when the project was originally approved. The issue of traffic and the generation of traffic from the retail and the senior center was reviewed and by the village's traffic engineer. It's an issue that was addressed, and we are well within the levels that were approved by the village back in 2015.
Thank you. And also the improvements on 91st Street, they've not been made yet, correct? They're all, that street has not been torn up and improved yet, is that correct?
It has been widened. We haven't seen the full restriping take place yet, though. So we're going to see more sidewalks go in as this development progresses. We're going to see the streets restriped. Spectrum is tentatively to open next January or February, so very shortly here, we're going to see that intersection just expand in capacity almost overnight, because a lot of those improvements have been made already ahead of things like this.
Because what I'm concerned of is that a lot of the residents' concern is based on the old street and the way it was, and you've had a lot of development go on there already, and nothing has changed there. They haven't gotten to enjoy yet the new street and the new planning that was anticipated when this started building with Spectrum and all the other things going on there. So, you know, I'm hopeful that you've adequately planned and that you will address their concerns with the new street, the new lane, and the new parking. It looks like it's well planned to me.
Trustee Francis?
Should Trustee Snyder go before me?
No, I'd like, you go next.
Okay, thank you. Doug, could you please call up that file that I have? Can I also have the pointer, please?
Yes.
Kevin? Thank you. It's the one titled Z05 2018. I have a few comments. Any questions? I was able to have the opportunity to attend both public hearings on this McDonald's proposal. I want to thank the residents for their outstanding comments, their concerns, and the issues and items that they brought forth during their testimony to the public hearing, both the residents of the Village of Burr Ridge and the non-residents. I want to thank staff for putting together excellent staff summary, answering questions of trustees and of plan commissioners and the residents. And I also want to thank the petitioner for putting together a well-thought-out presentation. Did a great job. So, also, Chairman Trupek went out on his own. Plan Commission Chairman Trupek went out on his own 3 mornings and sat there and watched traffic at this intersection for his own benefit, so he could provide feedback to the Plan Commission. I appreciate that as well. A couple of questions, though. First of all, if we could close that stuff on the left, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, the 3 main concerns brought up by the residents and the Plan Commissioners were traffic, crime, and architecture. We know about that already, so go ahead, if you don't mind. Traffic, this is the overall view of the site plan. I didn't put the fancy red arrows in there like Evan did, but gives you an overall perspective. And notice how the outlet from Spectrum lines up with O'Neill, and that was done on O'Neill Drive, and that was done on purpose. But that allows for the continuation of the cut-through traffic that was talked about earlier. Can I go to the next slide, please? One question I had, and it might have been asked at the first Plan Commission meeting, but I don't recall the answer. So we have traffic coming in the site here, proceeding up here to the drive-up lanes. Yet we have our waste receptacles, which, by the way, separate standalone waste receptacles like this are not allowed in the village, but this petition is getting relief. When will those waste receptacles be emptied And how will that emptying not impede the traffic coming into the site? It's a question for the petitioner.
So typically, the receptacles are twice a week, and to somebody's point, during off-peak times. So in some cases, it is 3 times a week, but I think in this case, with the projected volume of this restaurant, we're looking at 2 times a week.
Okay, specifically then, to answer my question, what time of day? Will it be during
What time of
business
day that-
hours or after hours?
So it's during hours, and that does vary, but we can work with that.
Okay, so how will a refuse truck backing up to empty those bins not impede the incoming traffic?
Yeah, in this particular drawing, we would definitely have to work with the trash receptacle hauler to make certain that it is probably closer to after hours, if not during close.
Okay, so after hours are at midnight though, or 11 p.m., I'm sorry.
Correct.
11 p.m., so we have a garbage pickup, refuse pickup at after 11 p.m. or before 5 a.m.
Yeah, we would have to.
We allow that in the village? Doug?
Yes. Yeah, I don't believe there's any restrictions on that.
On commercial? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, we just spent a lot of time looking at this previously, but I called it up again because I want to point something out. We've all seen that other guy do this, and we don't like that person when he does this. But we have an outlet here, and this is supposed to stay open right here, right? That's supposed to stay open so that people can get out from O'Neill, from the north, out from the Specker property to the south, and pull right in here and pull up to the 8th car right here. But these people here, sometimes there's that guy that he pulls forward, the next guy pulls forward, the next guy pulls forward, and they block that. So when that's blocked, these people can't get out to turn left, to go either direction on Route 83, and these people from O'Neill can't get out to turn southbound on Route 83. Now, in an ideal world, that space stays open and people can enter 91st Street as they would like to, but in reality, that space gets blocked. And you can put a sign up there that says, do not block the intersection, and that might help. But the reality is that's going to get blocked, and people are going to come out and block, turn in here, pull in halfway, just like they were going to pull in halfway into that left turn lane. So that item needs to be addressed as well. So next slide, please. Let's talk about crime for a moment. So these are the crime statistics that staff summarized from their FOIA request between January 1st, 2012, March 27th, 2018. And so these are the calls that DuPage County Sheriff responded to. These are the portion of those calls that were criminal activity, meaning theft, armed robbery, assault, suspicious activities, and this is the portion that our village helped out with. And I agree, village wasn't called them on too often, thank goodness. But what my concern is the McDonald's calls at 256 of overall calls and 256 service calls and 132 criminal calls. Now, there was some discussion about, well, not all of those were attributed to McDonald's. They might be for the bar next door or the tobacco shop next door, but they used the closest address that they could find. I understand that. So those numbers are inflated somewhat, but I don't think that they're inflated. I don't think that they're 49 for DuPage criminal, based on when I read through the FOIA request, when I read through that data and looked at all the ones. So it's something more than 49, but something less than 132. And that crime will be transferred across the street into Burr Ridge, and our officers will have to respond to that. So I just want to make that distinction. The crime is coming across the street. Now, sure, you can put another business in there with less intensive a use, with less criminal activity, less people hanging out, and it would be permitted. Or it might require a special use, which again, we'd have another public hearing. The residents would provide their input on that special use. But the fact is, it's a known quantity, and this is McDonald's is what's going to come across the street into our village. So, next slide, please. Architecture. This is what's proposed. Now, the petitioner made mention of that. He changed some of the colors here, added this detail here to make this McDonald's more distinct more unique to Burr Ridge. Those colors match the Spectrum Center. I appreciate that, appreciate the effort. Go next slide, please. Let's talk about similar architecture in the neighborhood. This is the Hoffman Estates McDonald's. Here's a Streamwood McDonald's. Looks familiar. Next slide, please. Berwyn McDonald's. Bensonville. Okay? Could the petitioner explain to me what the Forever Young concept is at McDonald's? Someone from McDonald's? Maybe the real estate person?
Al Daniels with McDonald's, project manager, 711 Drury Boulevard, Oak Brook. Forever Young. It's a phrase that was coined. It's to try to keep the stores relevant.
Okay.
So if you'll notice, we've remodeled all our restaurants across the United States. They should all be done by 2020.
Okay.
We're also going back inside the restaurants on the insides and remodeling them. The object is to try to keep them relevant for as long as we can.
I appreciate that. That's a good corporate citizen. That's a progressively thinking corporation. That's great. Can we go on to the next slide, please? How about some upscale architecture in our area for McDonald's? Here's Winnetka. These details out front, columns. I'm not an architect, but this is apparent to the naked eye. Gables, the Frankfurt McDonald's. Same type of treatments. Now, if we look at the next slide, that's the Spectrum slide. We go to the next slide, Doug. Why don't we pick up these details that were on those other McDonald's, pick up those details from our Spectrum Senior Living Center with the columns, with the gables, and put them on the McDonald's in Burr Ridge. That would be distinct, that would be unique, and that would be upscale, and that's what our village deserves. Next slide, please. Hinsdale, we all talked about the Hinsdale McDonald's. Look at this. Here's the Gras Mill, here's the McDonald's. Do you think the Hinsdale Village Board had something to say about this design? I'll bet they did. I'll bet they did. Next slide, please. Trustee Grunston mentioned about the McDonald's in Sedona. Look at this. It fits in with the classic architecture of the desert Southwest, including the green-blue non-golden arches. Here's one I see all the time in Hayward, Wisconsin. It's a log cabin. It doesn't even look like a McDonald's. You drive by this, you don't see a McDonald's. You see a log cabin, which is next to the log furniture store next door, which is next to the bait shop, and so forth. It doesn't look like a McDonald's at all. So my point is, a lot more could be done with the architecture of this facility to make it distinct. And I know McDonald's can do it because we see pictures here that they've done it in the past. So, I think that's all. Yes, that's all the comments and questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Snyder, do you have any questions or comments of the staff or the petitioner? Trustee Snyder, are you there? Apparently he's not at the moment. Okay. Other discussion? Questions?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I am here. I apologize. I lost you for a second. Can I continue, please?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, Trustee Snyder, do you have any questions or comments of staff or the petitioner?
Trustee Francis brought up the fact that since 2012 to 2018, there was on the low 49 to the high 132. That means Burr Ridge, if we went with the low of 49, then we'd have 8 calls from Burr Ridge to go to McDonald's. On the high end, we'd have 22. In the view of what the McDonald's is bringing to the village, 22 additional calls per year on the high end is not significant, in my opinion. And I appreciate all his due diligence of everything that he's done and went on from here or there, but at the same point, the bottom line is this: it's 22 additional calls, and that's over a 6-year period. You know, it's 8 calls a year, 22 calls. I'm not sure on that particular point. So from that comment, I think that McDonald's is proposed to correct things. I appreciate what they brought forward and everything. Nothing else, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Trustees, questions, discussion?
So what was originally planned for the PUD and Spectrum was for a drive-through feature to be closer to the right in, right out. I mean, is it something that, I think that would help divert some traffic further south if McDonald's would, instead of be on that hard corner of 91st, move closer to where that right in and right out is at. You know, I understand that traffic is going to meet less than expectations, but I think the traffic going to a Walgreens or CVS is a different type of traffic going to McDonald's. So I don't know if there's consideration of moving site further south, closer, next to that right in and right out, which would bring traffic to that corner.
And so encourage more people to just go take Route 8.
Right.
So quite,
Trustee, we're looking at, in terms of comparing what was contemplated previously, a drive-through was looked at that hard corner. From a McDonald's standpoint, having that hard corner, that visibility is something that's of key importance in order for the project to work. The idea or the concern regarding traffic is something that, once again, we vetted not only through this process, but also through the process when the Spectrum development went through. What we are providing, or what we are going to be putting onto on the roadway system, is consistent with those prior approvals that this village board made. And also the impact which was shown is really fairly minimal in terms of the impact on that roadway system. As was mentioned, what we're looking at is essentially one more car at the peak, at the highest level of traffic volume on the street, one more car per light cycle. And what both our engineer and the village's traffic engineer indicated is that additional car will go through the light. So the impact, as has been reviewed by a total of 3 traffic engineers, indicates that this works. The amount of traffic on this site works, and once again, was approved. The amount of traffic was previously approved.
Trustee
In
Francis?
regards to what Trustee Francis said, I've been around the country and I've seen the different modifications that McDonald has made. I remember the one I couldn't believe when I saw it, Frankenmuth, Michigan. And I was just wondering, like this, I was glad to see this, and as Trustee Francis said, I just wondered if we're too far past the line, or if they could modify it slightly to fit in on what he was talking about. If we, okayed or voted it down, but if we voted it in, could it be modified slightly? We're not talking a major modification.
Sure, understood, Trustee, and that was something that we worked with both the staff and the Plan Commission as well. And I know Chairman Chubek is architect. We've talked to him as well. The work that it took, and they're never going to get as much credit as they should, but the representatives from McDonald's who are here, Al and Maurice, they went and they did everything that they could to get all these elements that are on this building. That is not an easy process to go through. It has to go through brand review, and what we're looking at right now at this site is McDonald's from just a volume. This is not a high volume restaurant, and there just isn't the justification for, for something that it can't support from a cost standpoint. So what we looked at and what we really wanted to do is to go ahead and try to make sure that it fit in with the location and fit in with the rest of the development, and we think that it does. The stone arcades, which have been added to each side of the building, is very reminiscent of, if you look at the single-story buildings that are associated with the Spectrum development, they have very similar stone arcades along their building elevations as well. So we did try to pull in those elements. Even on the we're using a larger block on the lower portion of the building with the bricks on top. Even though the Spectrum development has kind of brick all the way, they do differentiate the lower from the upper. So we try to bring in those elements. So what you really have before you, and part of the reason that we had to wait a little bit between meetings on the Plan Commission, is because we really had to take that time to get those approvals from McDonald's. So in terms of what can be provided, we believe that this is what fits in, and this is what we can provide.
Trustee Francis?
So, to make it clear so all the trustees understand it, this is a artificial stone product they're using on the exterior, not a natural stone like we have required at other sites in the village or at our beautiful bridge that we have. That's all natural stone. This is an artificial man-made product, and let's be clear about that, so there's no misunderstanding.
Correct.
So you're not willing to make any of those, adding those gables or any other stuff that I've suggested? Trustee, Chairman Trupek has mentioned numerous times about the architecture.
Trustee, what we're proposing is as far as we can take this building.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'd like to call a friend and ask the McDonald's representative to answer that question the same way. So may I ask someone from McDonald's to come to the microphone?
As Jim pointed out.
Let me just preface it, and you can reintroduce yourself too, because and Trustee Francis made a good point, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think the other topics, it's I think somewhat debatable. You have the idea of traffic. Yeah, any business area is going to require traffic, so we know that's going to be a fact. And the residents, you don't get a chance to own the property next door unless you buy it. So we know that hasn't changed. The crime, I've talked to the chief before. Chances are, if it's moved across the street, I would think that crime won't necessarily move down the street, across the street. I suspect it's going to decrease, because with additional police coverage, with the Burr Ridge Police Department there, with Spectrum there, yeah, I think that's probably not going to. I think we'll see a decrease in that. But to Trustee Francis's point, there's a huge difference between. Now Sedona, I get it. I was just there. That's really expensive dirt, and they've got to step up and match the climate. But Frankfurt, I have a tough time Frankfurt and Hinsdale having one that looks that much better. Is there something that could be done, adding a gable or two to somewhat complement per the trustee's request?
No, I understand. Was the times that we were doing those special buildings, it was a different time at McDonald's. I've been with McDonald's 33 years, and it wasn't unusual for us to do special buildings on special locations. Going back to the question about Forever Young McDonald's, part of the problem is when we do that, is we don't look like a McDonald's, and it hurts our marketing. So there's a big internal debate. Should we do that or should we do it? Jim mentioned that what we have to go through to get buildings approved before we even come to a zoning meeting. We meet with the planning departments. There's a lot of meetings internally that I have to go through on special requests. What can we what will they allow me to do to adjust the building to get to a certain look? This one took some meetings, of course. But to answer your question, we can go with real stone, it doesn't have to be porous. That's one adjustment we can make. As far as the overall architecture of the building, there's not much room for adjustment.
Because of a branding issue, and that's a
Because of branding
uniformity. Okay.
It's unfortunate, but it's the way, that's the world we live in today. In McDonald.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Not what you wanted to hear, but is what we have to do.
Thank you. Okay. Other questions? Any motions?
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor, to approve.
Trustee Snyder, motion to approve.
Second.
Trustee Paveza, second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Does that include what the petitioner offered, to use natural stone instead of the man-made product?
I will be partial to that.
Well, it depends. Trustee Snyder and Paveza would have to indicate whether they want to
Modify
include
it.
that in their motion.
Modify the motion.
I agree with the modification.
Clarification on the motion, this is also includes the sign package as well? Trustee Snyder?
Those will be two motions, I'm sorry.
Trustee Snyder, does that include the sign variance of less square footage but more signs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have all the information we need now?
I think so. Do you have,
Any further discussion?
Just confirming the hours, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
as all other conditions as recommended by the Plan Commission?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
No.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Welcome to Burr Ridge. Okay, moving on to the update from the local school committee.
Yes, I will provide an overview and ask trustees Tall and Model to weigh in.
I need to go run to the restroom. But can I let Trustee Paveza handle the chair for a minute?
The board will recall that the village board established a local school committee for the purpose of supporting local schools and having opportunity for Burr Ridge residents to influence in a positive way local public schools that serve residents in Burr Ridge. The local school committee has met 3 times, most recently on May 10th, last Thursday. Their activities to date their primary activity has been to focus on filing a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education that focuses on the differences in the demographics between Hinsdale South and Hinsdale Central as a result of actions by the District 86 School Board, and also related to that, the differences in curriculum opportunities for residents in each of the 2 high school districts within District 86. You have a draft of the complaint that has been prepared by the members of the committee with the assistance of Village Attorney Scott Euler, who is serving the committee pro bono. And I'm sure between myself and trustees Model and Matal, We can answer any questions you may have on that draft. But the bottom line is, at this point, the committee is preparing to assist residents on the committee and not on the committee file that complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. The village will not be a sponsor of that. It'll be the signatories will be residents and taxpayers of District 86. And the committee's role is to assist those residents and taxpayers in filing that complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. That is my report or summary of the local school committee activities to date. If trustees have anything to add, please do so.
Yeah, well, I've had the pleasure to work with Trustee Mittal and all the residents on this, and we heard a lot of complaints from residents about the school issues who've been concerned with property taxes and other things, and things that they don't perceive as fair or right at the school district. And I tend to agree with them. And now, having spent a lot of time, with the residents, people who had a lot of facts and a lot of information, it's been compiled in a very I think informative way, a succinct way, and I think the story is pretty clear if you read the complaint. And it's important to note the village is not a party to the complaint. The village has not spent any money on the complaint. It was all done volunteer service, and simply we give a forum to the residents to come together and help get organized and help get information. And the residents are taking action on themselves, but certainly we've helped them be organized, which I think is an important duty for the village to do to help them with this issue. But this complaint speaks for itself. I encourage you to look at it, and I think if the allegations are true, it's fairly egregious what the district has been doing, because in reality they've decoupled the attendance policy for about 60% of the district from geography. And what federal law requires is that you send the student to their closest school unless there is some compelling reason otherwise. And if the compelling reason or if sending the student to a farther school has a negative impact on the ethnic and racial makeup of the district, they have a problem. And I think if you read the complaint, you'll see it's pretty clear there. So hopefully the complaint will hopefully get the district to see the problem that they've created for themselves and for the residents, and hopefully it will lead to some positive solutions for our residents who are desperately concerned about it. I'm sorry, I spoke a little.
No problem. All right. So I want to say I'm very happy to be working with Trustee Model on this committee. It was started to provide the citizens a forum to voice their concerns about the way the schools are. And we call it the School Excellence Committee because we're trying to make our schools excellent. The concern is that we all pay taxes, so all the residents of Burr Ridge should get the same kind of education, but unfortunately that is not the case. Some residents get a choice to pick which high school they go to, whereas most of the Burr Ridge residents don't have that choice. We all pay taxes, but one school has a huge number of courses to choose from in high school, whereas Hinsdale South, they have a very limited choice of courses. So that's why we did file the complaint with the Board of Education. And we're going to, once the board approves it, then we'll get signatures from the residents and bring it in front of the Board of Education with hope that something needs to be done and that we get the board's attention to start making some changes. But we're just trying to provide a forum for the residents to voice their concerns. And the village is really not involved in it. Everyone's just volunteering their services.
Correct. And my one clarification is that I believe that the board really isn't even approving this. Is that correct, Doug? This is an information-only purpose, and the residents are now, this is up to the residents to take it and file it. So I think that'll be happening here. My understanding is they'd like to do that by the end of the month. And we wanted to report back to you about the great work of the committee and the great work of the residents in Burr Ridge. We're truly blessed to have some really, really talented people here in this town who can come together and solve issues quickly.
And I just wanted to bring up, we've had complaints from high school students as well, who go to South, who have complained that they do not have the same opportunities that Central offers, and they resent that because they would like to take certain courses which are not even offered at South. So those are all concerns that we would like to bring to the Board of Education's attention.
It's a fairness issue, and it's a financial issue, and it's law, following the law issue.
How many residents on the committee?
We have 12.
12.
11,
11, okay, including Zach and myself.
including the two of you.
And we could have had more, but we wanted to keep it a manageable number.
Was there any discussion about having a separate committee to address the other districts, 180?
Not at this point. At this point, I feel we're just trying to manage.
Manage this one?
Manage this one. Maybe down the road.
There is some consideration to look at the other issues next, but we were wanting to tackle
One issue
everything
at a
one at a time, right?
Good. Any other updates or questions of the committee members? Trustee Francis?
Just a comment. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this so far by the residents and those volunteers contributing to this effort. It's been a great job. I did read through the complaint. It is extensive, it's exhaustive, and it's quite detailed. And it's quite impressive. So please keep us updated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Thank you. I live in the Hinsdale South District, so I appreciate your help, so.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to C, consideration of mayor's nomination to appoint Barry Irwin to the Planning Commission for a term expiring February 1st, 2023. Any discussion? Trustee Francis?
Yes, I had asked to have this removed from the consent agenda, so I'll start in with the reading I have here, and then I'll start to pull something up on the overhead projector. So first and foremost, my issue is not with Mr. Irwin. I am pleased that such a highly talented individual has stepped up and volunteered to serve the village. My issue is with the process, or the lack thereof, that was employed by Mayor Straub. There has been a long-standing tradition, procedure, and process by which the plan commissioners have been appointed in this village for the benefit of the new trustees. It involves, amongst other things, formal interviews of potential candidates. The interview process consists of several trustees, the village president, the plan commission chairman, all sitting down in the conference room next door over here and conducting formal interviews of the candidate. The community development director and the village administrator have also participated in these interviews over the years as well. I'm told that this process preceded my appointment to the Plan Commission in 1997. I should also mention that I was interviewed 3 separate times before I was appointed. I then went on to serve at the Plan Commission for 16 years. Again, for those new trustees, this process was followed by Mickey and the board in June of 2013 when we had 3 vacancies on the Plan Commission. 2 regular commissioners and the alternate. Those were vacant. I can't remember the total number. 5 or 6 candidates sat down, we interviewed them by the trustees, by Mickey and the village administrator and the Plan Commission chairman as well. At the conclusion of those interviews, 3 qualified candidates were agreed upon, and all 3 openings were filled with a unanimous consensus amongst the trustees. I want to point out here that one of the appointees, Mr. Bob Grella, was required to go through this interview process, just like the other candidates, even though he was a former trustee of 8 years and a former Plan Commission chairman of 10 years. He was treated fairly and equally, just like all the other applicants, even though his previous service to the village was spectacular. Again, this is not about Mr. Irwin, it's about the process. Times have changed. 2 years later, in 2015, Mickey recommended an appointment of a candidate without trustee involvement in the interview process. A pool of candidates was not made known. Applications of other candidates were not reviewed. Qualified candidates were not agreed upon. To prevent this from occurring, this board of trustees developed and approved a policy titled Appointment of Volunteers to Boards, Committees, and Commissions several months later. Doug, would you please call that up? We spent 3 board meetings crafting this policy before it was finally approved. We had hoped that this would be the end of the appointment shenanigans, as one resident put it, regarding Plan Commission appointments. Here's the policy right here. Would you please, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You can read it. I'm sure you've all read it on your own, but I'm going to scroll up to the important part highlighted in yellow, please. Those candidates selected by the village president mayor shall be scheduled for interviews with the Board of Trustees. The chairman of the Plan Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, will be asked to participate in the interviews and provide input. The village board shall then determine by majority vote of those present at each interview session which volunteer applicants that have been interviewed are qualified for Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals service. Village president mayor shall then may then appoint any of the applicants deemed qualified for the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals via the interview process, subject to the consent of the village board. Here we are in 2017, and at the next opportunity to appoint a plan commissioner, this policy was bypassed. Policy we all agreed to, policy that's official in our village. Question, Mickey, why did you not involve the board in the interview process?
Question for you, Trustee Francis. How do you expect to benefit by doing this?
I'm sorry?
How do you expect to benefit by doing what you're doing?
I expect the plan commission to benefit. But I asked you a question first, please answer it.
And, well, like the preface was saying, I really appreciate your requirement for procedure and rigidness. I think that's one thing about you I admire. I think the new processes, you are analytical, beyond anything I would do. I follow my gut feeling, and I read, as I said to you in my email to you, and I'll read out loud if you don't mind. My apology for not putting up a panel of candidates for everyone to choose from and to go through the more common interviewing process and committee protocol that is frequently but not always followed in the past. Besides not having time myself over the last couple of months and being overwhelmed due to the previous campaign, I did not want to waste the trustees' time or try to coordinate 8 schedules. The reality was that we only had 2 candidates to choose from. And after discussing the second candidate with our village administrator and getting his impressions, and I was not going to nominate the second candidate anyway. It would have been a waste of time. What I chose to do, as I said before, and it's unfortunate that you decide to, you and I have disagreed with each other on probably 95% of things in the last 5 years. So I'm not, starting with Chase Bank and the hotel and the bridge and you name it. So I'm not surprised that you're trying to pull these shenanigans right now. I will say that I like for the village administrator to scroll up on this and remind you of what it says. The last, the last sentence in the first paragraph, this policy that we agreed on, the previous board, which by the way was a split board, and we had candidates that would, trustees that would actually choose to rather than follow what I wanted, they would like to embarrass people. That was the previous board that proved this. But this policy does not include appointments to the police pension board and does not in any way supersede the authority of the village president, mayor, as it relates to state law concerning appointments. It is my legal right to do it, and in this case, we had 2 candidates. One, I was not going to waste anybody's time, and in the benefit of the planning commission. Matter of fact, I also like to go on record for saying that the chairman of the planning commission interviewed the person not once but twice, once in person, once over the phone. I was based on both my discretion, my opinion, the advice of others. I thought that was the best thing to do, and we only had 2 candidates, and I was not going to nominate the other one. So, in the interest of time, I exercised my option.
That's fine. Thank you for your answer. If I may go on, please. I must point out that Trustee Baveza has 23 years of experience on this board and has interviewed numerous Plan Commission candidates. I served for 16 years on the Plan Commission. I participated in over 300 Plan Commission meetings during my service on the Plan Commission. I've worked with many great commissioners during that time. Doug Pollock, our village administrator and former community development director, spent 21 years attending each and every Plan Commission meeting. He also prepared packages for the Plan Commission, met the petitioners, researched past procedures and zoning history, assembled and prepared meeting minutes, answered commissioners' questions, and performed hundreds of other tasks necessary for soundly functioning plan commission. He was and is the stable rock of the plan commission. He was not invited to the interview. With all the wealth of talent we have here, why weren't we consulted? I mean, what was the rush?
We all had, matter of fact, I contacted them, no one really wanted to interview. They were fine with my decision, and it wasn't exactly a rush, but.
No, that you made the decision, and then you contacted the trustees to ask them if they're okay with it. I'm talking about the interview process up front before the decision is made. Why weren't the trustees involved?
I already said my made my statement.
Okay. All right. Well, I ask that in the future, you know, based on past precedents, and I'm trying, no gain for me. Past precedents, and this is nothing against Mr. Irwin. I'm sure he'll make a fine candidate, a fine commissioner. But based on what we've done decades in the past, and what the policy says, that you invite the trustees to participate in the interview process. That's all I'm asking, Mickey. And that's all we talked about in 2015, is get the board involved.
Trustee Model, any questions? Statements?
I was just going to mention that I felt like I weighed in. I don't know what's been done in the past. I appreciate the process, and I appreciate where guys coming from and stuff, but I felt like I did have the opportunity to weigh in and was fine with it. So I appreciate the need to follow the process, and if it's necessary, if we need to, for a procedural standpoint, waive this or something like that, I don't think that it's necessary to.
Sorry.
Thank you for the levity. I think we need a little bit. Thank you. But no, I was going to suggest that if it's necessary to waive this or modify it, I'd be willing to entertain that if that's the direction we need to go. But I did feel like I had the chance to weigh in and was consulted on it. I can't speak for anyone else.
Trustee Professor, anything?
As Trustee Francis said, this policy was in effect before I became on the board, and he is right. I voted to appoint him one of the plan commissioners. I think the policy that we've had for all these years and as described on the board should continue to be followed. If you can't make a meeting, set it up and let the other board members interview and vote.
Sure.
Yep. And
in the past, did you have multiple candidates? I don't
So
know.
in 1997, we had 31 or 32 candidates. It was right after the AMC movie theaters, where hundreds and hundreds of residents attended those public hearings over at Ashton Place. And then that's where many of the residents got a taste of the Plan Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and filled out an application when they heard there was 2 vacancies.
I mean, to me, it's important to do it if there were a choice. Here, you didn't have a whole slate of candidates to choose from.
Well, then can I make a suggestion? If we don't have a whole slew of candidates, or it's just for one, hey, just reach out to the board ahead of time. I've only got 1 candidate or 2 candidates that I think are worthy of interviewing. Anybody interested? That's all.
I wouldn't fine with that.
I would have been fine with that. That's all it took.
We went
An
for
email,
weeks.
a phone call.
I agree.
It was the after fact stuff, and it was after 2015 when it happened then as well. It just, 2015 left a sour taste in some of our mouths, and here it is, next opportunity, it happens again. Just raise the question. You know what? We'll probably all be too busy, but that's fine. At least you invited us to give us the opportunity to provide input. And that's all I care about. So, thank you.
I feel that Mayor Straub asked me as well. He ran it by me, and I felt involved in the process, and he explained that there were really just 2 choices, and this one was the more deserving candidate.
In an interview.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But he did, for the reason that there were just 2 candidates, it didn't make sense to have a full interview, and he felt that this was a deserving candidate, so I felt involved in the process.
Sorry.
Mrs. Scapa?
I also got notification about Barry, and I was informed, and I felt confident in the decision that Mayor Mickey made, along with Chairman Chupek, who was able to interview with him. And I think it might be, as times change, I think maybe an opportunity to update the policy regarding appointing all the different committees. I mean, we've got a lot of volunteer positions and not a lot of volunteers.
We've been asking for weeks.
Okay, so that maybe there's a way to improve that way of getting volunteers. Maybe that intimidates some of the volunteers to come forward to volunteer for our village. So I'm in support of Barry, and I move to consider Mayor's nomination to appoint Barry Irwin to the Plan Commission.
I second it.
Motion and a second.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Discussion on the motion?
Discussion?
So the point is, with two applications, to see if one, both, or none are qualified. Not which one's the best, which ones are qualified. And that's why the interview process needs to take place. Thank you.
Okay, end of discussion, but the chairman of the Planning Commission thought he was qualified. I went with that.
So am I.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Trustee Snyder?
Trustee Snyder?
Not available. Politics is alive and well. Motion passes 5-0. Other considerations, pronouncement, deliberation, and/or discussion. Another section for residents' comments.
During your session on the volunteers, one thing I'd like to say is I was around when you were discussing that back in 2015, and I think it's important for transparency. You know, the residents can't be there; they can't interview these applicants on their own. But it's a lot more comforting knowing that several people have done it, and rather than one person making a choice. And I think that's really important. And lastly, I'd like to add is that was an open comment. I had my hand up, and Mayor, you're getting really good at ignoring the residents when they want to comment why it's on the floor.
Well, this is also politics is alive and well in Burr Ridge, and I appreciate your honesty and your comments. Yes?
Lori Chang again. Just want to say I'm really disappointed. I thought we would have had, I guess when I saw the McDonald's, when you, at least if you were going to accept them and you were going to try to have them put something unique, and they were like, no, we can't do it, we can't do it. But I just can't believe that you couldn't have stuck with it. They're not going to back out. They just wanted to get off the cheapest way they possibly could, and you let them do it. So I'm kind of disappointed in that. As I said, I'm very involved with the school, the high school district, with Lorig, and I don't know. It's just, I don't think you're listening a lot to, I know it's politics, but you're not listening a lot to the people that live here. And I'm just very disappointed. And Helen, I thought you were, it seemed like you were helping the people from McDonald's. And you're with us, you're with Burr Ridge, right? You're with our board? But it was like you were helping them all. And I was so disappointed in that. I don't know, again, here we go. I just write my check every year for the taxes that are probably so dang high. And it's just, we get more and more and more, stuff. And the traffic study, I don't care what kind of traffic studies you have, you don't know what it's like to drive around there. You have no idea. Plus you're talking about people that are, if you have normal drivers, not a lot of people that aren't normal drivers, they're crazy. So I'm just really disappointed. So I know it's a thankless job, but it's very disappointing, and I don't know how many of you live around that area, but like the one woman from the planning commission is trying to, oh, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, do you live there? And she goes, no, I don't. But I'm like, okay, it's enough, because they don't see our perspective of it. And to me, that's very disappointing. Thank you.
Don't forget Armed Forces Day, Saturday.
Oh.
10 a.m. All the trustees.
Can you come to the microphone, because that way you can be seen and heard, so the residents can get all the details of it.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to invite all the trustees, Mayor, Armed Forces Day, Saturday, 10 a.m. We hope they have a nice day. Everybody pray for it, okay? Thank you.
Well, you're inviting us to
time?
what?
Armed Forces, describe what's
For the participation in Armed Forces Day.
Armed Forces Day.
Armed Forces Day.
Is one of the largest events that we have in the village. It is the largest Veterans Memorial event that we have. We're going to have usually 100 people are able to attend. We have tell them about the band.
We have a band, we have caps, we have an honor guard. Hopefully we'll have a flyover, weather permitting, and a couple of short speeches, hopefully. And it's held right here at the Veterans Memorial. Any questions?
What time?
Yeah.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Saturday, May 19th.
May 19th, this Saturday.
Saturday, May 19th, 10
This
a.m.
Saturday.
at the Village Hall, Veterans Memorial.
And Doug's wife is singing for the second time.
That's true.
That's true.
First time at Armed Forces Day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was, that's right. Oh, that's right. That's right. Good. Oh, good. Reports and communications of village officials.
I believe Evan wanted to give you a little update on the upcoming Plan Commission meeting.
Yes, just a couple of brief updates on some agendas for future Plan Commission meetings. We recently approved as a board the IGA between Burr Ridge and Willow Springs for the Bugie Lane rezoning. That'll be next Monday, May 21st. Both petitions will be considered. We've all reviewed that, but their petitions for rezoning will be on the 21st. There's also a request made by some board members to discuss the parking at County Line Square. That will be on June 18th. So again, the IGA, the rezoning on May 21st, and then June 18th will be the parking and the uses discussion at County Line Square as a whole.
And the PASIC bus stop expansion has been postponed?
Correct, although I know our village administrator has been in discussion with them to try and expedite that.
Next meeting, is it
Great,
Tuesday?
thank you.
I'm hoping we can cancel.
Anyone else?
I would like to mention that the next board meeting is scheduled for May 29th, Tuesday, May 29th, the day after Memorial Day. One of the reasons your consent agenda was so large tonight is that I hope to cancel that meeting on May 29th, because I know a lot of people are gone over the weekend, and it's a Tuesday night. And if we can do all our business tonight or the next meeting, we'll do that.
And a final comment, I'd like to say that one of the residents said it's a thankless job up here, and I frequently have heard that over the years, that it's a thankless job. And I want to dispute that. It's amazing how much appreciation that I feel a lot of times, and I'm sure the trustees feel, appreciation from the residents for the work that's done up here. I know it's an expensive job. I spend 20 to 30 hours a week traditionally on mayor-related stuff, probably 7 hours a day alone. And anytime I'm doing that, I can't be doing my work. So it's expensive, but the experience is priceless. I do try to keep everybody happy, and if as best I can. Some things just can't do, but I do try, and I do listen to the residents. But I'd love to have the resident contact me outside of the board meeting, outside of trying to come here and trying to just say something bad. My phone's always open, and I'd be happy to meet with you. So, again, we try our best. We do. It's an honor to serve the village, and we're glad to do so. And I think the village is on the right track. and it continues to be so with the stewardship of this board. So thank you very much for attending tonight. Any non-residents like to address the board this time?
I'm not very good at this, but my name is John Serafin. I've been a resident from Burr Ridge since 1972, probably longer than some of the people on the board, some of the people in the audience. So I've seen a lot of change. I thank the board for their volunteer service. I think there was a tragedy done with McDonald's as far as the people on O'Neill. I think that's going to be a traffic nightmare. I see what it is. When I was here, I moved away 4 years ago. I retired. I moved to Tennessee. I still own property in Burr Ridge. That traffic jam is there, and it's terrible. I feel sorry for you. I think it'll bring a lot of traffic into the area. I think I'm not against McDonald's being there, but I think they need to find another way to get in there. Whether they have to deal with the state to bring a medium across to get into that area and eliminate that entrance on 91st Street. Other than that, I think it's a great thing that it's expanding. I see a lot of expansion. I haven't been back here in 4 years. I see a lot of expansion. I think it's great. I remember when Burr Ridge only had 600 people in it. Most of the area was unincorporated. So I saw a lot of changes. I think the board has made some very positive changes. Yes, we made mistakes, but you learn and you move on. That's about it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
You're gonna make a great Santa Claus this year. Now I can say that to him. I can say that to him. 'Cause I've known John for a lot of years. He remodeled the house, built my office building. So I can say that and get away with it. But great to see you.
I've been a contractor with this village for 32 years.
Well, great to see you again. Thanks for coming tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis?
I didn't make the motion. Sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
For the
Trustee
record, I made the
Favazza?
motion, and yes, but thank you, Karen.
Trustee Favazza?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder? Trustee Scapa?
Yes.
5-0.
Quicker procedure. That's a good thing.